Now, call me crazy, but if I was offered the chance to visit North Korea, all expenses paid, I'd do it in a heartbeat. As much as my parents will be freaking out, it is in some regards one of the safest places on earth to visit as a tourist. Due to the absolute insane punishments, crime is pretty much non-existent there. The chance of being attacked or mugged is pretty much zero. The only thing you should really be worried about is the government officials, but as long as you stick to their rules, there shouldn't be any issues. So most people know exactly what North Korea is like from a political sense. But when it comes to the country's geography, demographics, economy, and daily life outside of Pyongyang, it's a bit of a mystery. I'm sure we've all played about with Google Maps or Google Earth with the Street Viewer tool. Of course, this is readily available across most of South Korea, but try it in North Korea and the tool is about as useful as a chocolate kettle. Now of course, with North Korea cutting itself off from the outside world, there aren't too many videos or images available for this video, but I'll try my best to keep it interesting. So let's take a deeper dive into the lesser talked about aspects of this unique country. So North Korea is of course found here on the Korean peninsula. It borders South Korea to its south, China to its north, and also Russia in its extreme northeast. Its border with China is actually around 6 times longer than its border with South Korea. Its border with Russia is only 17 kilometers long. What's interesting about North Korea's borders is that to its south is its sworn enemy, a country that it threatens to nuke on a regular basis. Yet its other two borders are pretty much its only allies. However, they do happen to be two of the most powerful countries on the planet. So at 120,500 kilometers squared, North Korea ranks as the 97th largest country on Earth. That's a little bit larger than Malawi in Africa and a bit smaller than Nicaragua in Central America. To the east of the country you'll find the Sea of Japan, and to its west the Yellow Sea. The Sea of Japan got its name for obvious reasons, but why is the Yellow Sea named as it is? Well, nothing too interesting. It's named the Yellow Sea due to the yellowish brown colour of its waters, which come from the large amount of silt and sediment washed into it by the Yangtze and Yellow rivers in China. Other than its physical land border, the closest point between North Korea and China is around 190 kilometers across the Yellow Sea. And then for North Korea to mainland Japan, you're looking at around 500 kilometers. So this is how the topography of the country looks. The west coast, where you'll find Pyongyang, is rather flat, and then its northeastern coast, rather mountainous. This is where you'll find the country's highest point, Pik-tu Mountain, who stands 2,744 meters above sea level. The mountain is found on its border with China and looks pretty cool. The mountain has a caldera that contains a larger crater lake, named Heaven Lake. Most of the country has what is known as a humid continental climate. That means warm, humid summers and cold, dry winters. In the more mountainous northeast of the country, some regions can see a subarctic climate, which means it's pretty chilly year-round. Although figures coming out of this country are rarely official, it's believed that the highest temperature ever recorded in the country was 40.5 degrees Celsius in July of 1977. Its coldest temperature was minus 43.6 degrees Celsius in January of 1933. However, North Korea didn't technically exist then, as at this time the region was actually ruled by the Japanese Empire. So the country has a population of between 26 to 27 million, similar to the population of Australia. This ranks them as around the 56th most populated country on Earth. Its economy size is pretty much unknown. Some sources like the United Nations claim that its GDP is as low as $15 billion US. This would mean that the GDP per capita is somewhere between $500 to $600 US, one of the lowest on Earth. The people here are extremely poor. Travel south to its much loved neighbour South Korea and GDP per capita rates are some 60 times higher. About 37% of the country works in agriculture, earning very little but working extremely hard. The rest of the country works in industry, with its largest industries being military products, of course, machine building, chemicals, and mining. It comes to no surprise that China is its biggest export partner, accounting for around 70% of all of its exports in 2022. Weirdly, Poland comes in second, followed by the Netherlands. Now, given the fact that its people are so poor, the life expectancy in the country isn't as bad as you'd imagine. So apparently the country ranks 97th in the world with a life expectancy of around 73.5 years. That's only 4 years less on average than the Americans. Now this one is a little hard to believe, so do take it with a pinch of salt. As you'd expect, most of the wealth, if any, is found in its capital Pyongyang. This tends to be where its government officials live and work. Around 12% of the country's population lives within the capital, with its population being just under 3.2 million, making it of course the country's most populated city. Now, Pyongyang is, in my eyes, one of the most unique big cities on Earth. Usually, cities with this sort of population will be rather crowded, loud, and hectic, yet Pyongyang is nothing of the sort. It has these Soviet-style big spaces, little to no cars, and complete order, meaning it's super quiet and eerily chilled. Again, although figures aren't concrete, its next most populated city is believed to be Hamhung, with a population of around 800,000. It is found around 3.5 hours drive northeast of the capital. Chongqing, with a population of around 670,000, is the third largest city in the country. It is found in the country's far northeast, about a 2-hour drive from the border with Russia. There's something just so eerie and odd about these cities. It's like something from a simulation. The architecture of the buildings plus the lack of cars and big spaces makes the cities of this country truly unique. So, how many islands do you think there are in North Korea, and which is the largest? Well, again, there's no official figure, but estimates suggest around 3,500 in total, with the vast majority being uninhabited. The largest of which is Simni-do Island, found in the West Korean Bay in the northwest of the country. It covers an area of just 52 kilometers squared and is uninhabited. There is quite literally no images of this island available on Google. So whilst we're on the topic of islands, let's take a look at this island here. The island is found off the southwest coast of North Korea. But what's interesting about this island is that it is in fact inhabited but does not belong to North Korea, but in fact South Korea. Even though the island is found further north of the notorious border between the two, it is in fact a South Korean island where people actually do live. When the Korean War Agreement was signed in 1953, for some reason this island, along with others in the region, were given to the South Koreans, even though they are found closer to Pyongyang than Seoul. So this is Kejong-dong, a very famous North Korean town slash village. It looks kind of normal, right? Well, it's one of only 2 settlements that are permitted to remain within the DMZ. The DMZ, of course, standing for Demilitarized Zone, which separates the two countries. Now, on a bit of a side note, how many North Koreans do you think have defected to the south and vice versa? Well, it's estimated that some 31,000 North Koreans have defected to the south since the 1950s. And for the opposite, somewhere in the range of 20 to 30. I have no idea why. The big difference is that when North Koreans defect to the south, they are greeted with care, medical supplies, and support. Whereas for the opposite, it is seen as an illegal border crossing with severe consequences. But anyway, back to Kejong-dong village. So what makes this village so special is that it's believed to be uninhabited and only exists for propaganda purposes to encourage South Koreans to defect across to the north. The village is effectively supposed to show a nice village with high living standards, but is believed to only ever house the North Korean soldiers that work in the area. Another reason why this village is well known is due to the flag battle that happened there. So in 1980, the South Korean government erected a 100-meter tall flagpole on its side of the border. So of course the North Koreans didn't like this, so they had to one-up the South Koreans and built their own. However, theirs was 60 meters taller. It was the tallest flagpole on Earth until 2010. Today it is the 6th tallest. So what do North Koreans do for fun? Well, for those who can afford it. There are 2 tourist destinations we're going to talk about today. The first is Masakyurong Ski Resort, found around a 4-hour drive east from Pyongyang. The resort was built to try and encourage international tourists to visit the country. Now, the reviews are actually pretty decent for this place. The next is Wonsan Beach Town, which is found just 30 minutes east of the ski resort just mentioned. This is what the town and beach looks like. It's a place where you'll find locals and those government officials who have travelled from Pyongyang, maybe for a rare weekend holiday. In order to get to Wonsan from Pyongyang, you'd have to drive along this motorway, which takes you directly there. Now, as you can see from this map, the road network is rather poor and basic. Roads are actually of secondary means for North Koreans, with rail transport being the most used. For reference, this is how North Korea's road network compares to South Korea's, a stark difference. Now, whilst we're on the theme of comparing maps between the two, take a look at this one. This is the amount of light pollution coming from North versus South Korea at night, an absolute insane difference. I guess the only benefit of North Korea being greatly less illuminated is that there might be a better view of the night sky. This right here is the most used border between North Korea and China. The city on the North Korean side is called Sinwiju, and on the Chinese side Dandong. They are quite different in aesthetic. Dandong, although small for China's standards, is a rather large city which has illuminated skyscrapers, bridges and boats. Whereas Sinwiju is more of a muted industrial looking city. This is one of the only places where North Koreans can actually leave their country and experience what life is like outside of North Korea. So there we have it, a little deep dive into North Korea. Now, do you think that I'm crazy for wanting to visit there? Would you? If you would, wouldn't, or perhaps already have, let us know in the comments below. Like and subscribe for more content like this, and as always, thanks for watching.